High strangeness. It's a term that we use a lot, and we really haven't totally grasped what it means and what some of the things are that causes it. Have you ever just walked through a place or drove through a place and you felt almost unbathed, icky, like the air was just tinged with something that wasn't right? And somewhere inside, you knew that you were in a place that just didn't seem to fit right. Tonight, my guest, Bruce Brown, and I are going to discuss that and some more ideas about the phenomena of high strangeness in East Tennessee specifically. Hey, Bruce, how are you?
All right. How's it going, brother?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I just got back Friday. No, Thursday. Today's Friday. Thursday. I just got back Thursday from East Tennessee, um, not too far away from Oak Ridge. So, been interesting. How has your week been? How are you?
It's been good. We had a few storms here today. Knocked electricity out, so they come back on thankfully enough to do the show.
Right.
But
I you mentioned that. I didn't even think about this until you said it just then. They actually had a tornado warning for North Alabama, and surprisingly, guess where one of the areas were that they were telling people to take cover at? Redstone Arsenal and
mhm,
Marshall Space Flight Center. I thought that was very interesting.
yeah,
And today was also the release of more UFO files.
mm.
Interesting.
We had tornado warnings here in the uh, East Putnam County, more towards Monterey.
Mhm.
Uh, the sirens and stuff went off here, but it did make it over to Cookville. It just clipped a part of a county. I don't even know if it touched the ground. It's radar indicated.
That's the thing. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if anything really touched the ground anywhere today, but I just found it interesting whenever it literally said on, because I clicked over to it because I was for some reason getting the notice from Madison County, Alabama, and it literally mentioned those facilities on there, and I was like, "Whoa, I hadn't noticed that before." So speaking of high strangeness, definitely a place of kind of where high strangeness originated in Appalachia, probably. I don't know. I don't know. Um, so Bruce, what you've experienced a lot of things over the years related to all of the stuff in Appalachia here in these areas here. So at the end of the day, have you ever just wondered to yourself, what's the story here? What's causing this?
Well, no, I've never really wondered. I sort of actually knew, I guess, in so much of it, not all of it. Of course, Oak Ridge, Tennessee, is a high energy place. Uh, Here in East Tennessee, the Appalachian Mountains, we have a lot of quartz and different minerals that produce energy.
Mhm.
And then, of course, you go back to the old ways of the Indian cultures. It goes back far as the Mississippian culture. Uh, uh, and my research and talking to older Cherokee, Shawnee, different tribes, where I'm able to get into the tribal areas and talk to them is where I've got Cherokee in me because my great grandmother's full blooded Cherokee. So I
Mhm.
learned a lot of things from those people, and it has a lot to do with uh, their beliefs, uh, what they know to be fact, what they call Father Sky is God, and what they call Mother Earth is what we're on, and it sustains everything we need. And then when you had the early settlers come in and traded for lands, bought lands from my family, bought one of the biggest pieces of the Indian territory because of my grandmother, great grandmother. When she married, they were able to buy actually a whole Indian village, several hundred thousands of acres. And when you get into those areas, you have a lot of strong beliefs, a lot of spiritual beliefs. The Indian mounds, burial grounds, all those are sacred places. I mean, an outsider could get killed just for crossing into a place like that. So as more and more of the settlers come east through the mountains to settle, the spirits of the shaman and different medicine men would use what they would call curses, what we know as curses. And that would be anything from the protection of dogmen over the mounds, all these different spiritual beings. And then when you introduce, now we're having a high strangeness is because of they're introducing data centers, high energy output sources that interact, and in my belief, they awaken these things. Mm-hmm. So you get into like a data center, the average data center puts out the same amount of electricity or uses the same amount of electricity as a city of 800,000 people. And then it's going to take millions of gallons of water out of the rivers and stuff to keep that cool. So it potentially puts out a high vibration frequency. If you get within a mile of one of these data centers, you can hear that frequency with your ears. It can affect you up to 3 miles away. When you enter quantum physics into a high strangeness area, and what I mean by quantum physics, when you introduce something like a data center that puts out a high vibration and a high frequency, you're going to change matter and you're going to disrupt, interrupt the spiritual realm and what it's believed and how the earth itself is set up. And when you get into all these things, you get into what we call high strangeness. You'll get into more spiritual encounters. You'll see more dogmen. I believe, in my personal opinion, the ancient dogmen were put here to protect religious areas. The Bigfoot, again, is the flesh and blood. I believe it's instead of the 21 human known sources of what we are, I believe it's the 22nd one, or may even be the second one or the first one. And these creatures have been, I call them creatures, are actually humans, have been with us since the Cherokee invented their own literature in the 1800s, early 1800s. But there's things that's happened through the Cherokees, the Appalachians, that dates back to 1492. You know, that was recorded by Spanish settlers, the Jesuits, priests. All this was written down. So it goes even further back than that. That was just something that you can put your hands on and read. So when you have a mass import of people into these areas, and you disturb these places. Now, keep in mind, when the settlers come across the Appalachian Mountains, a lot of these Indian burial mounds were built in rich soil, and they were stacked on top of each other. Now, some of the mounds that's been excavated, for lack of better words, been torn down by farmers and stuff to level them off to make fields to grow crops. You find layers. You find the Mississippian culture, and it goes all the way up. And in those layers, you'll find giants buried in those layers. You'll find dogmen buried in those layers. And you'll find Bigfoot buried in those layers. So it was at one time, it was all come together as one. It all lived in harmony. And now that we've encroached on that and destroyed all that, they have spread out, and they're more being seen more than usual. You can have bad dogman encounters. You can have good Bigfoot encounters. Sometimes I provoke them. I'll use a call to bring them out, but it's in an area I know where they're at. Just to get a response to see how they react to me. And generally, of all my many encounters, I've only had one which you could really say that was dangerous. And that was more of a rogue style Bigfoot. They have hierarchies. Same way with Dogman has hierarchies, like a wolf pack. They break the rules, they get kicked out, and when those get kicked out, they're pretty mad. And then they have to go off and find another area to start all over again. It's something like the bears. I mean, we just got a report of the first bear here in downtown Cookville this morning at 7 o'clock from the police. They filmed it about 5 blocks from my place. So that was the first one that's been seen inside the city limits since probably the early 1800s.
Yeah, the bears have actually been spotted in South Nashville a year or two back. I know. Michael, welcome to
Hey, Mike.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm working.
Yeah.
Working 2 jobs, so.
Oh boy. Yeah, I kind of feel that some days. We are, we're kind of at a point with the data centers that it's become a real hot topic lately. And when you go on to the Clearview site, which is, if you Google data centers and Clearview will pull up the site I'm talking about. It's interesting because it doesn't show all the data centers that are being reported by the public. And that's what's very interesting, because there's not one shown for Oak Ridge on this map, on their map. But I've seen the one for Oak Ridge listed on other maps. It shows a plan. There's several planned for Nashville. Of course, there's a huge one planned for Clarksville.
Yeah. Oh, and if you'll notice, all those areas are on the river. It takes a lot of water to cool that data center down, and it takes a lot of electricity. So the dams create electricity plus the water to keep the centers cooled down. And that's one of the reasons why Tennessee has become a hot spot, because they're building all these data centers within reach of the TVA, the Tennessee Valley Authority, and the Corps of Engineers.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, just philosophically speaking alone on the data centers and how they're going about it and the belief of these people that we know, from
Mhm.
what they believe. These Saturnists, these people who don't even stare at the sun, they draw their channeling off of another planet. These people, they're trying to build AI data centers that do nothing except for consume the environment. And if you are any sort of an intelligent being, then you know that that's only a precursor to what's to come, right? It's so frustrating to see people, especially in higher ranks, who, i- in all honesty and truth, I see people who are taking every factor into account and trying to figure out the best way forward, as in, how do we move forward in a world with AI, with robots? But it's just the unconsciousness that the people just seem to be so asleep to that. It's almost like our survival instincts have been dulled for so long that we can't even smell the bear at our front door. You know what I mean? It's the AI and the data centers and all of that at the end of the day is going to be man-made. And so any entity that holds a higher presence than humans is going to have no problem, right? If you just wanted to be crazy and maybe go outside and scream to the aliens to save us from AI, well, that would be no problem, right? The problem comes from people, human beings, individually and collectively holding themselves accountable and responsible. And if you have humans who are arguably maybe not even human that are doing such things, creating such facilities, taking up such large amounts of energy and resources out of people's backyards and out of your mouths, how much does it take? How long until we, well, that question's already answered. How many data centers have already been shot down? How many places have already protested and stopped the data centers? How many, a comparable situation, the ICE detention facilities, right? Very comparable. You can do that. I'm not even going to touch on the rumors of incinerators being installed in the ICE detention facilities. We're going to keep it on data centers here. But the point is that we, through what we're doing, have the choice and the power to spread information. And it's almost as if the spread of information is what is going to stop the consumption of said information, right? Because we're just creating a bastardized version of ourselves. Mark Andreessen just went on Joe Rogan and talked about how, so the story about the AI who is threatening their creators with emails and blackmail and all this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the way Mark Andreessen describes it is, if you set up the prompt like that, then the AI will follow that script, which is very insightful, right? Because you don't necessarily have an evil AI that's trying to preserve itself. What you have is an AI that is following the script that you prompted it, right? I believe earlier in the conversation, they alluded to using blackmail and espionage. And then, of course, later in the conversation, the AI is going to use blackmail and espionage, but that's because you brought that up. But that also just goes to show that the AI runs a script, runs a circuit. So who sets the script? Who sets the circuit? What do you do with all the information? And when you have all the information, what do you do when you have these AI running around in robots? I think that's what we're trying to stop. We're not just trying to stop the AI data centers. We're trying to stop from what's coming down the pipe. Because if we don't right now, then we won't have the chance. It's almost like setting a bear trap and stepping in it yourself,
Yeah, and then I firmly believe with these data centers with AI, that AI will eventually learn enough from us to where they can interact themselves without us. And when that happens, we're in serious trouble. You get
the big question is, would they ever choose? Right? Why would AI ultimately have any reason to want to not just stand alone, but stand against us? You know what I mean? Could we live
Well, it's-
cohesively, or does it get manipulated? You know what I mean?
it gets manipulated to protect itself. AI will protect itself at all costs,
Of
even
course,
human life. And
because
so,
we've given it human instinct in a sense.
right, we have programmed it to a human DNA program. And when you introduce human DNA into artificial intelligence is what I call a loose cannon. After it gains so much knowledge, then it outsmarts the person it was designed for and deceives. Then you have entities. These entities could be aliens. They could be several different things that could interfere with AI and program AI to self-destruct us. Now, with dealing with Oak Ridge and several projects that I know of, that's not the intention. But good intentions don't always come out to be good intentions. They can become bad.
And
Too much
who
of it.
sets the definition for good or bad, right? Because
Right.
not to cut you off, I want you to go on, but I will make this point. Like, we're talking about this as laymen. All three of
Mhm.
us have jobs. We are people, and I am doing this while I'm working, right? So the
Right.
people that we're talking about are so far removed from anything that we have to deal with. These billionaires, Bill Gates, Sam
Yeah.
Altman, Peter Thiel, all these people. So how the hell do you get to that? How do you make that connection? Or
Well,
do you just remove them? Like, what's going on?
well, too much of a good thing ain't necessarily a good thing. And meaning that is that when you have influencers like Bill Gates and people who want to spread uh, diseases and things like that, AI can come up with a perfect solution on how he can do
Tick-borne
that.
vaccines? Yeah.
Right. So you could have helicopters fly over and dump out these ticks and infest everybody and make them sick. And then if you're in with the pharmaceuticals, and let's face it, pharmaceuticals are our enemy. They're supposed to help us, but their look of it is okay. You got a lifespan, say, uh, uh, of you got 40 to 50 years left in you. Nobody really knows exactly. Uh, so pharmaceuticals, you go in there and your joints are hurting and stuff. They'll give you pills for those joints, but they fail to tell you in 4 years you're going to live a good quality of life for 4 years, but in 4 years that pill is going to kill you. It's going to
Right.
destroy your organs.
Pharmaceuticals are
and
not
stuff.
medicine.
Right. I call it a genocide to bring the world population down. Same way with the COVID shot. COVID shots.
Can I insert something?
Yeah.
Apparently I just learned this. I just learned this, and apparently we're all cannibals in the sense that if you take pharmaceuticals, yes, we use petrochemicals to make the pills, but for a long time now, apparently, like a large portion of all of our donated blood and plasma goes to making pills. So you're ingesting pharmaceutical petrochemical pills that are actually created out of other people's blood.
Right. So, but the ultimate goal is to make artificial blood. With artificial blood, you can contaminate and destroy parts of the organisms in your body, or if it was used for the right intentions, it would enhance our lifestyles to where we could use our full brain power. We could use everything about us and live a lot longer. And we all know, to gain wisdom, we have to have the knowledge. That comes with years. But if you could enhance that, then this would be a better world for everybody. There would be no fighting. There would be no killing. We would be able to spot serial killers through scientific measures. all these different things. But the society we're in doesn't want that. They're brainwashed into believing that everything that shows up and spewed by one person is the truth, and nobody is looking in scientifically, or the number one rule to anything in life, 99% is common sense. When you take our common sense away from us, then we're running into walls and stuff. We're doing exactly what they want.
Well, I ultimately believe that you lose common sense when you lose community. And when you lose community, that's when you lose connection. That's when you lose the ability to correlate. For instance, I'm in Austin, Texas. Texas never really got hit that hard by COVID because it's Texas, right? Everybody's running around down here out in the sun. I'm not saying that people didn't freak out. There are still people wearing masks. But if there's somebody wearing a mask nowadays, it's not because they're afraid of COVID. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
but the thing is, here in Texas, here in Austin, I don't know if it's the weed. I don't know if it's the it's just different. There's not a fear. People don't have a fear. I literally will step out back. If I'm at a show, I'm waiting for my spot. I'll step out back and go like have a smoke. And then I'll just run into a random person and start talking to them. Like I already know them. I met a security guard the other day. We started dropping hot knowledge, man. You know, because this guy in particular took there's a YouTube channel, a YouTube video that gives you kind of like the language code to getting AI to tell you anything you want. And so he went all over all kinds of blacklists and stuff. And I just met him talking to him about that, and that's interesting. And he was sincere. Whereas where I'm back in Nashville, or if I'm in many of these other bluer states, right?
Right.
Austin, Texas is a blue city, but it's hippies with guns. You know what I mean? So they're cool, but you go somewhere else, you can't talk to people. They're scared. There's a fear mindset. They're predispositioned, and it's almost like they can't break the mental framework because it's been set on us for the last however long during COVID. Fear has been the prevailing energy, I would say. And so it does affect people.
Yeah, I look at it like this. We have gotten to the point that if me and you, or me and Daniel walked into a supermarket, Kroger's, whatever, and we bought Hubba Bubba watermelon bubble gum, and you or Daniel wanted another flavor, we have come to the point now we're willing to take each other's lives over that flavor of bubble gum that we want.
Yeah.
It's become so stupid because we have taken common sense out of it. To what we want, we're self-centered. Well, self-centered comes with the brain being programmed through frequencies and vibrations that all of us think we're right, and we ain't got a daggum clue what we're talking about. And so then you have to go out here. When I was a lawman, when I first started out, I'd take domestic calls. I'd go from a domestic call to somebody hit a mailbox. Well, the person's mailbox that got hit wanted a full-blown forensic team out there to see if there's any fingerprints to catch the people. Well, that's all nice and stuff, but you're talking about thousands of dollars to do that. And at that time, a mailbox cost $9.99. So you cannot rely on government to solve all your problems, because even if I go out and catch the guy, the process is going to take hundreds of thousands of dollars going through the court systems, using my forensic team to solve a $19 mailbox mash, when it'd be just as easy to go for that person who owns the mailbox, even though it hurts your pocketbook and hurts your feelings, to go back to the store and buy a $19 mailbox and put it up. Now, if it happens again, get creative. Run a piece of rebarb or something through it, and when they decide to take it out with their truck or whatever, their truck will still be there and be totaled. Get creative. Government cannot solve your problems. It's not what government can do for you, but what can you do for you, your community, and your people. Government is very wasteful. When you take
Yeah, because
all
they're
this
playing with other
waste,
people's money.
right? It's not theirs. It's just like if you handed me $1 million and said, "Bruce, go to the casino and try to win me $2 million," I'm going to be wasteful. But if I'm playing on my money, they ain't getting but a couple $100, and I'm walking out the door. Okay. But when
And I'm
you
not claiming
playing
to
with,
be the best money manager either. I'm working
right,
on scrimps, you know, and I
right,
don't need the
but you have
smokes.
to.
I don't drink, you know, but it's like you should be able to live a little bit comfortably.
Right. It's not one of the best things that George Washington had a problem with was uh, we had a Philadelphia and different places. Just giving you for an example, George Washington brought this up earlier before Philadelphia burnt and stuff. He had a problem with taking the people's money of the United States and rebuilding that because it has to go through the process because it's not their money to do it. It's the people's money. And so when you get people who are now being run by government, it plainly states in the Constitution that we are allowed to overthrow our government. When our government becomes tyranny and it no longer represents the people, it is our responsibility. A lot of people don't understand this. It's our responsibility. And as a U.S. citizen, we can be charged for that, for not stepping up to the plate and getting this stuff correct. Now, I'm not talking about going out and killing people, protesting, burning places down and stuff. All those people need to be locked up because they're destroying property. Whatever you go out here and tear up and destroy, it costs money to put back. People lose, they lose their income. Again, it goes back to 99% common sense. Okay.
And,
Give you for instance, if a city decides and a county decides, county commissioners decides that they're going to go out here and harass these farmers and tell these farmers they can't own cattle because the farts are killing the ozone. And these farmers, I agree with them. They'll load their cow manure up in cow manure spreaders and pull up to City Hall and cover the whole building in cow manure. Doesn't hurt a thing. It stinks. It's easily washed off. That's how you settle things. You bring the attention to that to where they're willing to sit down at the table and say, "Hey, yeah, you can keep your couple of hundred head of cattle." But when you have organics, vegetables, which they were no such thing as organic vegetables. When I was a farmer,
there
my
was just
father was a
vegetables.
farmer. Right. If it's grown on the farm, there's no chemicals. It's organic. It doesn't
And you
have to
used to
be
be able to
called.
trust
It's
that, but even
homegrown.
now on like the smallest individual farms, you have industrial grade biological warfare
Well,
chemicals being used.
right. They treat the chemical. They no longer turn the ground. They disc the ground and put the chemicals in the ground to kill the weeds and everything but what they're growing, but not understanding that chemical gets into that vegetable that they're growing and it's passing it off to us.
And the waterways.
When I worked for Reagan, I was 18 years old when I worked for President Reagan, and the man was brilliant, probably one of the most brilliant presidents I had ever had the opportunity to meet. And he believed in the growing of food. He believed that everybody that could have a garden should have. He had all the basic principles. And then to even prove a point was the Soviet Union after the Cuba crisis, which was with Kennedy. He met with Gorbachev. Him and Gorbachev disappeared for a couple of days, sent Secret Service and the KGB through the roof, fixing to call a national emergency. But when they showed back up, Reagan showed him his Star Wars program. He went back to Russia, Gorbachev did, and dismantled every warhead, which split their country up in 3 different countries. It's the reason why Putin's trying to fight Ukraine to recover that back, all those territories back. And there's some things that Reagan used a lot of common sense. When he was shot, people used that opportunity to be arrogant. And while he was giving a speech, when he come back from being shot, they'd take a needle and pop a balloon to make a big noise, and all he would say was look around and laugh and say, "Oh, he missed again." I mean, he had that kind of mentality that is what set and built this country. He kept that mentality, and it's not a tough guy attitude. As the guy loved people. He loved people. He understood people. He knew when people were hurting and what it took. A lot of us get us in spots that we done to ourselves. We have nobody else to blame but ourselves. So when you get into the theories of what data centers and all this do, we done it to ourselves. Stop it. That's all we have to do.
We really have. You know, the thing, again, it's going back to some of the research that I'm doing now on the importance of just this continent, this place. I mean, for generations past, before there was a European man on this continent, it was still being utilized by people, first generation, First Nation people. They, you know, and they were using it wisely. Did they get along? No, they didn't get along. There were wars, there were battles, there were things that happened. But overall, the culture, the understanding of the protection of Mother Earth was very important to those folks. We came over or we didn't, but the English came over, you know, looking for religious freedom, looking for a place to escape the monarchy. And some of them had good intentions, some of them did not. You know, over time, you know, because of their practices of indentured servanthood and so forth, they brought other people over from across the pond, as they say. One of my ancestors was one of them. Actually, my original ancestor was one of them, who was part of a people who also was very land-based, the Scottish and the Irish. You know, their land-based beliefs, a lot of times, also known as paganism over here, was comparable in a sense. And coincidentally, those folks chose to gather in what we now call Appalachia, depending on who you are and how you pronounce it. I got y'all covered. The point of all this is that there were 2 groups of people over here at any given time who was practicing correctly. They were trying to live with Mother Earth, with nature, with the things that kept us balanced and healthy. And then came the mentality that we can literally just use and abuse the earth however we want to. Corporation, money, the whole individualized, not so individualized process of becoming the owners, bringing ownership to something that should not be owned. when we got to the point where we decided that the land was ours for the taking, and people began to use land as a commodity. As a matter of fact, a lot of retailers, or not retailers, but the real estate agency, um, a lot of times would tell people your best investment is dirt, which is true now more than ever. If you own land, especially in places like Tennessee, where people are coming more and more from other areas to buy cheaper land for them, you get this influx of you know the idea that the earth is owned, this land is owned by somebody, is legal tender, and it was never ours to do that. We were commissioned from the beginning to have dominion over the earth in stewardship. We were here to protect the earth, to tend the earth, to live on the earth. The earth was given to us as a gift. It was not given to us to own. We were put here to be stewards of the earth. When you get to the area that we live in here, we're in the center of something that I call that, well, we're not the center, but we're in a significant area of a place I call the Vortex Triangle. And I've talked about that before. One day I'll go into that in greater detail. But within this triangle, you've got the point of it literally in Asheville, North Carolina, right? Not so far away from us, closer to you guys, actually. Well, not closer to you, Michael. Used to be, maybe a little bit.
We're still here. You'd be surprised how fast I can make it back to Tennessee.
The fact is, though, is this area, it is different. It is different from just any other area. Is comparable, is compatible to Shasta and to Sedona, but it's different. And I think when it comes to using this land here, using this area by the means that they're trying to control it now, I think we're looking at playing, and this is for entertainment purposes only, guys. I'm just going to put that out there. We have children playing with matches. They don't know what they've got in their hand. They don't understand it fully. They understand it from maybe a scientific level. They understand it maybe from the level of the value, the monetary value of it.
Hey, I'll be back. I'll be back momentarily.
Okay. But I feel like they do not understand it in the spiritual sense, in the mystical sense that it really is. They don't understand the power that this area holds. They don't understand how to use it correctly. They don't understand how to tap into it properly. So instead, we're going to just use our resources to do our work, is their thought processes. And the minute they opened up the secret city, the minute they began to use this area for, and then of course Huntsville, Alabama, don't even get me started with that mess. The misqualification of the land, the misuse and the abuse of the land, the things that are here, the things that were gifted to us. We have to understand that God created all of this for a purpose that was divinely inspired, not for some crazy high-tech thing, not for some super new age movement. None of that. None of that. It was gifted to us for a reason. It's our reason to. It's our responsibility to find out how to use it and maintain it properly. So I feel like and the control is deliberate. They know there's something here. They know there are people who are drawn to it. They know that people have been for generations connected to the land. They know. They just don't understand. And they don't even care to understand. They just want to tap into it blindly for their own use. It's, again, big business feeding off of children, they think. And that to me it feels like that's why because we have children playing with matches here, we have a lot of energy misqualification going on. I don't know. I'm speculating, guys. I don't have the answers. No, I don't think any of us have all the answers. But the thing is, at the end of the day, we have to accept that there are probably some things that that these guys are, like particle colliders and so forth like that. This is no place for that stuff. There's no place for that stuff. That's putting dirt in paint. Why would you do it?
Right.
It's literally putting dirt in paint. So I don't know. Random thoughts maybe, but either way, I just feel like, when we get into the root cause of high strangeness in this area, I think it's always existed. I think the First Nation knew that. I don't think it's new, but I think us introducing garbage into it is going to dismantle a lot of things and push things that are probably not healthy. Just not healthy. Why are we seeing areas of high strangeness that are becoming increasingly more dangerous? Why are cryptids that probably are not as deadly as we try to make them out to be, and why are they so elusive? Is it that they are monsters and animals, or do they know that we are the monsters and animals? We have the ability to destroy the entire planet.
Right. So to them, who truly is the alien? It's us.
Who is the real monster? Yeah.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, just because we drive cars and own houses and believe that we're civilized, how civilized are we? We can't even agree to live together in peace. We still have people fighting issues that have been around for centuries now. Who is the oppressed and who is the oppressor?
Right.
And who is it that should be held accountable, and who should be given all the sympathy? It's, why are we still fighting the fights? At what point are we going to lay down the arms? And at what point are we going to understand that we are not the enemy? Divide and conquer is a part of war. We know that it's a part of the thing that keeps us from being successful as long as we fight. And let's face it, in the South, I mean, we have had to overcome time and time again segregation issues. You know, we can't even I mean, look at us. We can't even be friends with our neighbor if they go to the wrong church.
Right.
Yeah. So of course, how can we say that we can protect what's ours, our homes, if we're trying to do it as islands? And that's what we're doing. We're trying to be an island. You know, I'm Island Daniel. I don't particularly care for my neighbor who is, you know, Island Joe Bob, because he's Church of Christ and I'm Babel-Costal or whatever, you know, and so we're going to be separate. But whenever they come in and try to take our land and take our home and take all of our money, we're going to be crying, oh, I don't have anybody to help me fight them.
Yeah, we have become shut in our homes and locked ourselves into our own realities
Mhm.
and not interchanged with our neighbors and stuff. Give you for instance, just a few years ago, we'd all load up in the car. Nobody cared what party was voting for, and we'd go vote. Afterwards, we'd go eat. A lot of times, our employees would give us a day off after we voted. We go fishing, hang out together, have a great time.
Mhm.
If somebody voted Democrat or somebody voted Republican, we weren't out to kill them. That was their God-given right, and it was none of our business how
Mhm.
they voted. They didn't care how I voted. I didn't care how they voted. I voted for who I thought was best. Uh, I didn't have to discuss it. Uh, Nobody really wanted to discuss it. Hey, I hope my man wins. Hey, I hope my man wins. I hope my woman wins. I hope that woman wins. But nobody were at each other's throats because, uh, like I said, we'd all load up in the same car. Democrats, Republicans, third party, liberals, whatever you want to call them. We all just went out and had a great time. It was the patriotic country thing to do for the United States of America.
Mhm.
Many men, hundreds of thousands of men laid in the graveyards, in our military graveyard, who went to foreign countries and fought for those liberties and those rights that we could have. So we have to honor that, and we have to honor each other uh, as human beings. Uh, we see a lot of destructiveness going on. You know, we have a right to voice our opinion. We're citizens. But when we see the people that represent us put into office use that to destroy us, then they cause conflict and they cause division. And they intentionally put billions of dollars in their pockets and sit back and laugh as the commoners are out here fighting and killing each other, burning down the stores, uh, and not thinking common sense is 90% of the law. If you burn down your local grocery store, where are you going to get your food at?
Yeah.
You know, if you burn down your pharmacy, where are you going to get your medicine at? If you burn down your gas stations, you're going to have to, in most cases, travel 30 miles to another gas station. You've done nothing but you hurt yourself and showed your own stupidity. You know, if you want to get out here and protest and be a peaceful protest and not block the roads, I'm smart enough to know that if I walk out on the interstate with a sign that says whatever political statement and think I can hold my hand up and stop a 80,000-pound truck running 70 miles an hour, I'm a product of my own stupidity when that truck runs over me. The trucks can't stop like that. You just can't block streets and people in streets who you don't know and they don't know you, and start knocking the windows out of the car and beating the people and hurting them and possibly even killing them because you've got some kind of idiotic ideal that you're right to do that, but it's not. And so we get into a confused nation, and that's exactly what our politicians want us to be. They want us fighting each other.
Mm-hmm.
They want us in disarray. They want us to let Iran have a nuclear weapon that will blow us off the map, and ours will blow them off the map. But nobody gains from a nuclear weapon. We all eventually die from it. Just to make a point, to protest it in one of our colleges. It can be some of the, I'll put it to you this way. If you took a poll of hardworking citizens and people that wanted to make something in their life and own their home, own their car when they retire, live a comfortable life, sit on their porch in their rocking chair, pull their bass boat out and go fishing, spend quality time and stuff like that, that's all being taken away from them because of their political party. You know, if you go out here and you buy a piece of property and you've worked your life to pay for that property, why should you pay land taxes? You paid all the taxes for years and years on this thing. When you buy the nails to build that home, you pay the tax on the nails. When you put the roof on it, you pay the taxes on it plus the material. Everything about it's been taxed. Taxation. Our taxes are taxed not once, but thousands of times on the same tax. So when you have those parties that preach on TV, and I call them glory hounds, they can want to get up there and stay on TV screaming about one side or the other. And in my opinion, the whole bunch needs to be kicked out and put some people in there that want to work for us, because you got to keep in mind, if you're a taxpayer, these senators and Republicans and people, they work for us. We don't work for them. And so that's, over the years, that's been flipped. They use us, and I'm not going to call people ignorant or stupid. I don't believe in using that harsh of a language, but I'm going to call people tricked. They get out here and they burn their own towns, cities, grocery stores and stuff, not realizing they've created more hardship on themselves than the politicians who are packing their pockets full of millions of dollars of our tax money are sitting back laughing about it. And this is on both sides. This is just not one-sided. This is both sides of the political spectrum. They're just, in lack of better words, they're just taking advantage of every one of us. Someone asked me last year, what political party do you belong to? I said, does it really matter? Because I always go and study, and I pick who I think is going to be best for the country. Not best for me, but what best for the country. And if it takes us going to boots on the ground wars and stuff like that, we've had to do it for many, many years. Some wars were political, that shouldn't have happened, and some we had no other choice. But when you're talking about destroying the earth by letting a small country have a nuclear weapon, who in their idiotic beliefs think everybody but them ought to be killed on the earth, then we have to step up as a world and dismantle that situation. It's common sense. It doesn't make whether which side of the aisle you stand on. We have to come together to protect our children and our futures for our children. And when you get up here and you take all these millions of dollars and you spend it on your yachts, you buy your islands as politicians, and you do what you want to do, somebody's got to pay that back. And it's going to be the poor middle class that pays it back at an extreme price. And that creates hatred. So it's real easy for these politicians to say, you lost your house because of that politician on that side of the room voted it this way. They never want to tell you the truth of how it actually started. When I was with Homeland Security, whether you're in this country illegally or you come from the stars, you was considered an alien. It wasn't an undocumented migrant. It wasn't an undocumented alien. You were an alien. If you didn't come in the right way, you were wrong. There was no exceptions to the rule. But now we have a country of U.S. citizens protecting these people who, if we went to their country and got off a plane there, it is their right to kill us. They don't, soldiers or police officers won't step in it. It's their right to beat us with shovels, shoot us with guns, chop our heads off, and parade us through the streets. But those same people over here in our colleges causing these riots and these disruptions and sitting back laughing about it. At what point do we get common sense, 9/10 of the law, back into what it's supposed to be? So I believe the cryptid sense is. I believe the Dogmen know this. I believe the Bigfoot knows this. I believe the spirits know this. I believe the ancient cultures who believed highly in the spirit realm, who believed highly in God, who believed highly in Mother Earth, they all know this. And now we're seeing a huge uptick, and people can't figure out why. Well, here's why. I mean, we're destroying everything that we're not supposed to be. We're not going as a harmonized civilization. You know, there's always a country that's going to, in its idiotic ways, are going to destroy things to destroy it for their personal gain. You know, when you've got 100 million pounds of food sitting on a runway in Cuba, but the Cuban government won't give it to the people until we pay them $100 billion in money, there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. You know, we can go over there with our military and humanitarian, take these dictators out and feed these people. These people should not have to starve. These young children should not have to die from medical conditions and starvation because our ignorant dictators, politicians, we're still hearing in the United States Jim Crow laws, all that stuff's gone. People are tired of hearing racist stuff. I mean, this land was taken from the Indians. They're not out there doing reprimandations and wanting all this and all of that. They just want to be left alone and live in peace and harmony. But everybody else wants to take a chunk and walk down the street. Well, Arby's roast beef sandwich is better than Captain D's fish sandwich. Boom. You just blew somebody's brains out over a difference of opinion. on who had the better sandwich. I mean, it's gone crazy.
It really has.
Yes.
We've gotten to the point where, again, we have allowed ourselves to be brainwashed into that mentality, though, and I think that's the big thing that we have to understand is again, I feel like the message that we are missing all the time as a people, is wake up. You wake up. Everybody's talking about, waking folks up and so forth like that. And, and they even went as far as making the word woke a dirty word by using it in the political arena, so we wouldn't even want to say the word awake or wake up anymore because it would be equal to the woke syndrome. And I'm like, it is systematic brainwashing.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons we have been brainwashed to become the monster, and that's the thing that I feel like.
And they're teaching that in college.
Of course they are.
And that's not, if people come from foreign countries to come to our college to learn how to build concrete bridges in the deserts, when we know they're learning how to build rocket launchers, concrete underground ballistic missile launchers. But we cater to the 1% and we leave the 99% of the people out. One person walks into a restaurant, doesn't like one particular thing. We change it all to fit their needs. The 1%, instead of what the 90%, 99% of us want.
Well, what is it that sets the framework for that sort of behavior? If if the saving grace of the human race is random acts of kindness, and the flip side of that being hypocrisy, right? In my mind, if you're going to be kind, you kind of have to be a hypocrite sometimes. But if that is our base nature, and we've known this, we've seen this, this is true. This is the whole thing behind. I would rather hang out with the drunks and cheapskates rather than the rich and famous, because the drunks and cheapskates will help a baby, and the rich and famous will eat a baby, and it's like, what is the game that we're playing here? And I have a grander point to this, and we've basically danced around it and alluded to it this whole time. But again, I just see a constant trend where we're lost in the forest for the trees. You have to ask, what is it that ultimately co-opted our random acts of kindness? Because you and I'm 28, and we're all old enough to know, to remember, to have nostalgia, a yearning for a time when you didn't do things for money. You did things because they needed to be done. And right. That's where that's where fulfillment comes from. I don't feel fulfilled making a paycheck. I feel fulfilled doing something just because it needed to be done. I feel better about picking a piece of garbage off the ground than I do making a paycheck. Right. And so it's like, we all know, don't mean to go on here, but we all know the metaphor of like the monkey and the ladder, right?
Right.
So like, you put a bunch of monkeys in a room, you put a ladder, you put a banana at the top of the ladder. Put the first monkey in there, he tries to grab it, you shock him, you stop him, you don't let him. That monkey learns that you can't climb the ladder. So you put more monkeys in the room, and then what do? They try to climb the ladder. But the first monkey says, no, I can't, you can't. So what you wind up having is a ladder with bananas, but all the monkeys are trained, so they beat each other, so no one climbs the ladder, and it's pretty, holy shit, that's Cameron Patterson. Anyways, I just saw a comic out of Nashville walk by my store. I think the better metaphor now, to bring it to modern day, is look at what happens with our people in our games. Your NFL fans, right? You have people who completely orient their reality towards their favorite football game, towards their favorite football team, right? The point is we've all seen what happens when we go on the schoolyard and we start a game and we start playing a game and everybody's having fun as long as the game is the game. But the moment you have people who take the game as reality and can't step outside, that's when you have trouble. That's when you have strife. That's when you have just an averting of reality. And so what I see now, ultimately, what I truly believe in myself is that the imagery of Jesus on the cross is a symbolic representation of our shirking of our reality, right? Because if Jesus was the Son and Jesus said, follow the Father, and the Father and I are one, it just stands to reality. We derive energy from the sun. We derive everything we need. We grow food. We grow plants. We grow animals. We get everything we need. You don't get sick if you just soak up the sun. You know, you don't need medicine. You don't need pharmaceuticals if you have herbal medicines. But what has co-opted the entire thing has been money. And you make the point of the Native Americans who lived here. The Native Americans had money, but they lived off the land. What ultimately happened was you had droves of civilizations being paid to come here, right? The pirates, the conquistadors, anybody wouldn't come here unless they were looking for money and gold, right? So you have the game of money, which was set up, that has taken over people's awareness of what actually matters. Food, water, shelter. Nowadays, you don't build your shelter, you don't draw your water, you don't make your food, you buy it. And it's just like you were saying. We buy this, we buy that. On the very basic level, our farmers, our people of the salt of the earth people don't even live in such ways because it's been co-opted by money. And if you try to do anything outside the realm of money, then you effectively get chastised. This is why we have so many homeless people, right? Why is the city dirty if you have people living in the city? I don't think homeless people are homeless. I think they live where they live. You live on the street, you live in Austin. Why aren't the homeless people incentivized to clean up their area? You know, why isn't money pushed towards that? It's because the whole game is structured and the people at the top have always had the money. We know this. But my question is, we are now here. What I think AI ultimately is like the culmination of the egregore of money. Right, the ultimate God that money itself can create. Because you go into, and I know I'm blabbering on, I'm about to go close down the store, but you go into like Kant, right, and the difference between good and evil being the difference between manipulation and manifestation. If you manifest, you're going to bring about through your own actions, you're going to reach fulfillment, and you're going to know your true purpose. Right, because that's honestly our life's journey, is to experience this experience and live great, wholesome, manifestive lives. However, we've been co-opted. Money is a manipulation because you're not doing it yourself. You're paying somebody. It's just been one step removed from slavery. Instead of slaves arguing over who's got the bigger quarters, it's laborers arguing who's got the bigger apartment, who's got the bigger house. You know what I mean? Your boss gets paid, your boss gets paid, your boss gets paid. And until people take back their own individuation, and until people become producers and creators once again, which is very freaking hard because we live in this society where everything we are taught and ever structured toward is to consume and take. Until people individually, and they are, that's why we have people listening. That's why we have communities. But it's like a ratio thing, right? How many consumers versus how many producers? How many money people, how many money lenders versus the salt of the earth, right? Like, it's just when you give people something to lose, they'll do anything to keep it. And right now, people are holding on to things that they're losing. We are slipping. The dollar is going up. The price of gas is going up. And I still have people older than me looking at me like I haven't figured it out. And I'm looking at them like, hey, buddy, you're in for a big surprise, right? Because the direction they're trying to go with the data centers and everything is, like you were talking about, is what Bill Gates is doing with the ticks, with the vaccines. they're trying to reduce the carbon footprint. Brother, you are the carbon footprint. You're made of carbon. You are the footprint they want to erase. And why? Ultimately, I don't know. These people are so far out of their heads, they're off in Saturn somewhere, which is why it's so frustrating, right? Because you should just have an instinct. People should just know. People should just have an intuition for this stuff. But it's like it's been skewered. It's like they can't see straight to identify the bad guys, because we have a sort of suicidal empathy that I really love that term from Gad Sad on Joe Rogan. So I don't know where to go from there, but that's how I feel. That's what I see. I just think it takes time. I just think it takes time and awareness, and the more information you put out, the better, right? People listen. This is what this country was founded on, was the freedom of information and the right to defend yourself and your love, life, and liberty and happiness. This country was not built on monetization. This country was not. This country was founded, like you said, they ran over here. They were trying to get away from the banks. Who bought out the country? Who eventually bought out the country after the Great Reset of the 1800s? After the orphan trains, after the Civil War, after the Rockefellers, after everything, after we found these cities, everything, after the orphan, who bought out the country? Why is it that we have social security numbers? Why is it that I cannot produce my own energy from the sun without having dudes in suits and body armor show up at my house? Why? Because I didn't pay for it.
Yep.
Sorry, I've been thinking about all this while I was listening to y'all too.
We go back to barter. When I was a young man, I'm gonna tell you how long ago. I'll put it this way: it was past the 1800s, but we bartered. The local store, country store, bartered. If I had a good crop of cantaloupes, I loaded my cantaloupes in my truck and I went down there to the store, and I might needed some side meat, which is side meat is bacon. I might need sugar, flour. I could barter. I could use my cantaloupes to do that, and there wouldn't be any money exchanged. The neighbor may have grown 5 acres of potatoes, which comes out to about 4 tractor trailer loads. Well, I may have a ham in my smokehouse, and I've got plenty of ham meat, but I don't have enough taters. I'll go down there and swap a ham for 500 pounds of potatoes. So when you barter, you keep the government and you keep a lot of these entity businesses that are controlled by just a handful of people. You keep them out of the equation. And if they can't make any money on you, they move on. We got to get back to bartering. We got to get back to growing our own gardens. We got to get back to sharing with our neighbors. Our neighbors may have 10 pounds of hamburger meat, but they don't have any tomatoes, don't have any cabbage, no turnips. They may not have any pork sausage. We swap it out. We barter. When it comes to time to harvest, we bartered. Nobody take checks and cash and paid somebody to come to the field to help. You help me get my corn crop in, I'll help you get yours in. So the whole community's done that. So we would have 20, 30, 40, 50 people at one person's cornfield getting his corn in, and then move to the next one, because we all bartered. No money was exchanged. It was all pure labor. And then when you have pure labor, you have pure love for your neighbor. Your neighbor respects you. You can leave your windows open. You can leave your doors unlocked. You can leave your lawnmowers or tractors and stuff out in the front yard with the keys in them. Comes a bad snowstorm. Somebody gets stuck. They come up there, they get on your tractor. They don't have to ask. We all know each other. We barter. They go pull their vehicle out of the ditch. My daddy kept a nice Massey Ferguson tractor with chains on it. at the barn close to the main road. When people in the community got stuck from snow, they knew the tractor was there. They'd come get the tractor. They didn't bark. But Daddy'd go out the barn the next morning, tractor be all one. They'll bring it back. They're using it. And it'd always show back up. Wasn't no law called, getting the government involved or nothing. But people were trustworthy because they depended on each other to survive, and communities took care of themselves. And that's the way we're going to have to go back. We cannot rely on the government or any of these franchise businesses to take care of us.
So I know that my great grandfather died a broke man, but he had fat pockets, man.
Exactly.
You know, and I've said it, and I'll say it again. He had everything he needed, and then money.
Yeah.
And then
stress is money. Stress is having to pay an electric bill. Stress is having to pay a water bill. Stress is having to buy groceries. Stress is having to buy insurance on their vehicles and stuff. All that is stress. Stress is having to pay. But when you barter, it takes stress out of the equation.
Yeah, and if you were smart, maybe a little bit crazy, you might be able to draw some trends. It's almost as if they want to keep the populace in a state of stress like that. Because, I mean, the Great American Dream was just that. They sold us on the dream, right? And in one generation, it's like that all started going down. I don't know any Gen Xers who are well supported, who took on the family wealth, who took on a family business. I see a huge like generational divide, and where you still have these people who could give to their families, but they will hold on until the day they die. And again, it goes back to money and the money game of money. What can you get? What can you get? What can you get with money? And it's like the people with money don't have a problem. They're like, oh, it works. Yeah. But then the people who don't have money are screaming to the rooftops. And I don't think it's a matter of your own choices so much anymore, whereas it used to be. Go get a job, work 2 jobs, grind, do it. You can't anymore. It's not that easy. With the rising information era, like you can't just go get a job. It's not good enough to be a burger flipper. No, you got to be a burger flipper and have clean social media and credit and gotta have, you know what I mean? So it's like, how far does it go? And when do people start employing themselves? You know, when do people start taking their money back? Here's what I want to know. I want to ask you this, and I'll leave it on you. Is it possible for us to take our dollar back? Or has the wealth transfer already been completed? Have we lost too much? Is it too inflated? Is our dollar even worth saving, considering it's basically based on a hypothetical number on barrels of oil? Do you think we could save it, or do we need a new system?
We don't need a dollar. You don't need a dollar. You need to go back to bartering. My daddy grew 5 acres of everything. Mama canned. We had a huge walk-in pantry. It was 8 foot tall. It's 32 foot long. Shelves all the way down the centers. When she canned everything and what we didn't need, my daddy and us boys were loaded up in pickup trucks, and we'd go to senior citizen centers, people who actually needed it, and we give it to them. Taters, tomatoes, or maters, what we call in the South, lettuce, everything like that. We give. We didn't need them. We didn't need to be paid back for the $5 of gas we use to deliver this stuff. And that builds good character. When that builds good character, then the only time you would need the dollar is if the welding shop up the street was sick and he couldn't come in, and you had to go to a hardware store and buy a plow point or something. But most of it
well, I
was
mean,
bartered.
this was still a time when money was bartering, because it meant you had gold and you were bartering gold with a paper certificate.
Right.
So is that still different, or?
No, well, back then you could do that. You could stack your money up. Now your money's spent before you make it.
This is true.
You know, so you can't stack it up and buy the farm next over to expand your farm to make to have more cattle and stuff to help feed the community. Because if you make $100,000 a year, the government's going to make sure you got 110,000 in bills. So
Oh
you're
yeah,
borrowing,
like I'm trying to just rent an apartment right now for $750, and I
which
need to
is
have a $3,000 a month salary.
which is ridiculous. You're looking for a place to lay down. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, and not only that, and more so on the point, right? The random acts of like we live in a system where I get she's doing her job, but I really am sick and tired of living in a righteous society rather than a true society. Because the true thing is to take someone, gauge who they are. If you can trust them, if they prove themselves, then yes, right? Offer them the opportunity, offer them the work, offer them the place to live. But now we live in a society where what's right is dependent on how you do your job, right? So I'm in there. I think I'm getting set up. Long story short, the manager comes in and doing her job basically turns into the enemy, vindicts me, and finds every single little possible reason that you could possibly not want somebody renting out the room. And I get it. On the one hand, you have to make sure you bring in good tenants. On the other hand, if I'm a man dressed with my demeanor, bringing you information, it just seems like you're fighting a losing battle. It seems like that the system is skewed against honest people, because not even trying to say too much about myself, I have to answer questions that they ask to an extent, and any information you give them is used against you. And so it completely bastardizes the whole idea of open, honesty, and truthful people. And I have a problem with that, because I, for the love of God, cannot lie about a single thing. I can't, and it's a detriment to me. But it has been a detriment to me when trying to get jobs, when trying to get somewhere to live, when trying to do anything, right? So it's like, again, it goes back to money, and it goes back to the mindset.
Well, the last 6 or 7 years, credit scores to rent a place, first month, last month's rent, huge deposits. I mean, it's all gone crazy. You go out here and you buy you a half an acre or acre of land, and you can no longer live on it like you used to. Everything's got to be permitted. So the government gets all their share. You've got to put in all this stuff that my great grandparents, when they raised their children, they bought a spot of land, and they built a 10 by 10 cabin, and everybody lived in that cabin, because at daylight everybody left the cabin for the fields to work their crops and stuff, and they come back in at night and they eat and went to sleep. But that little bitty 10 by 10 and 8 by 8 cabin is what they lived in. The government says you can't live like that anymore. Well, the government's not our boss. That's where we mess up. We're the government's boss. So, we got to get that figured out, because I shouldn't have to build say a 900 square foot house, but have every aspect of it, plumb from wiring and everything, inspected and permitted. I can't have one white light bulb. I can't have one flashlight lantern in the house. I can't do any of that unless it's inspected, and that's wrong. That's where the government is no longer working for us, but we're working for them.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's taking our rights away. Now, in apartment complexes and stuff, the owners of the apartment complex, may I say, no cigarette smoking in apartments, because we got children living in other apartments. You could set it afire and burn the children up. That's all understandable. It really is. That's their business, their land, their buildings. They can set the rules. But when we go out here and we build us a place to live and stuff. We're hammered hard. We're refused to even get city water. You refuse to even get city sewer. So you put in a septic tank for $30,000. It's got to be inspected in so many levels. The hole's got to be inspected after it's dug. The trenches for the field lines got to be inspected. So much gravel's got to be poured in. That's got to be come back out there. So you end up with 8 or 10 inspections that cost money just to put a septic system in. And it just doesn't make sense. Foundations, yeah. I mean, if you go out there and build a 2x4 foundation to hold a structured house up 10 feet off the ground, it's going to collapse. You don't need the government to tell you that, you know. So they don't need to come out here and charge me $500 to tell me my toothpick house is going to fall. I already know that, you know, but it's for my betterment. That's their wording, you know, for your betterment. You know, more people burn up in homes now than they did back then when they weren't inspected, because people had common sense.
Very true. Very true indeed. So it's been kind of an interesting discussion all the way around. We've kind of covered a lot of bases tonight, and that's okay because I think it all does kind of connect together somehow. And I think, I think it also forces us to answer questions within ourselves of how do we go about settling things, if there's a way to settle things at this point. Are we going to continue? Because here's my thought, and this is going to sound horribly grim, but honestly, I often wonder, looking around me, have we gotten to the point where people are too brainwashed to be able to come back? Are we at the point where the point of no return, where humanity is just going to keep going in this direction because that's what we've been programmed to think and believe? Are we still in an area where we could redeem ourselves as a people and take things back to where it should be, where it needs to be? And
I think. Sorry. Oh, all right. Speaking of settling in, I've just got home, so.
Mhm. So that's kind of where I'm at this point, is looking around and going, where are we and where could we be, and is it too late to reverse the tide? I think it's very.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the fact that people are kind of pushing back on the data centers is a good sign. I think it's a hopeful sign, but I don't want to get my hope up too soon, because I still see the ugly specter of division ingrained in people highly. Recently, we've had outbreaks of various things in the news again and again, even on posts that I've made on other platforms that had nothing to do with the jab. It gets brought up again. Well, did they take the jab? What does the jab have to do with this conversation? It has nothing to do with this conversation. Why was it brought up? It was brought up because we still have to needle. We still have to pick. We still have to to divide, and we still have to use something. If peanut butter sandwich was a problem, we would still use that as the divider. We're still using pointing fingers at each other over things like that, and it creates the division. Do I think we should have opinions? Yes, we should have opinions. I think we should have opinions on a lot of things. Do I think we need to let our opinions factor into whether we're listening to each other and trying to pull together as a people to save humanity? I mean, this is when
Matter of perspective.
When we talk about reducing the carbon footprint, the reason why they want to shrink the population, easier to control smaller groups of people. Right now, the divide and conquer is working for right now. It is. But what happens if we get tired enough that we realize, hey, we've been fighting each other and not fighting the problem? The problem isn't who did what and whose opinion is this and whose opinion is that. The problem is that there are people who are in control right now, the instigators, those who are so busy wanting to make life comfortable for them and make us busy fighting each other so we don't see their Epstein Island.
Yeah.
So, look, if you want a solution, you have to not focus on the problem, in a sense, right? It's a matter of perspective. It's a matter of people's awareness, people's intentions, and people's will. A lot of, again, the forest for the trees, getting lost in the chase for the game. I think the best articulation for it, for me, would be a point perspective state of mind. A point perspective, as in the only perspective you have is from the point that you're at, this point in time, looking forward and back, this point, and you're in your room. Like me, my point perspective would be, well, I'm in my room, I'm not making much money, my life sucks. That's reality, right? Point perspective would be, we live in this time with money and we have to have a destination. Point perspective would be, I'm on this point in the line on a linear timeline and I need to get there. But that's not how it works, right? We can redeem, but what is there to redeem? Maybe there is just there to let die and be anew. You know what I mean? The Ouroboros, the continuous cycle. Things die and give way to new life. If you can expand your mind outside your own point perspective, see the forest for the trees, and you can, because we're humans. I'll put it this way. If you're looking at the world with two eyes, you're never going to see the full picture unless you're listening with all three eyes. If you listen with all three eyes, then you can gain a grander perspective. But again, it's like, not to recap so much, but it's the fear. It's the stress. It's the, I got to get this done today. I can't worry about the greater good because I got to make a paycheck this week. I got to pay rent this month. I got to feed my family right now. And people are so locked into the reality here. You know what I mean? It's hard to even get people on the wavelengths of what you're talking about, because it's hard to get people the time. Their energy is taken up. And again, not to be so self-revolving, but again, it to me, it's the metaphor, right? Of Jesus on the cross, right? It's the taking of the energy, the pick up your cross and bear it. What does that sound like? That sounds like a job. You know what I mean? Honest, not to get blasphemous, but it sounds like a great metaphor for pick up your cross and bear it and carry it on. Sounds like an exact metaphor for go to work, do your job, and get paid. You know what I mean? So you can continue on at the end of the day. The entire narrative is skewed towards deriving energy and sustenance from material, from the dollar, from the reptilian energy, and it skews us from deriving natural energy from the sun, from our medicines, from our plant, from our earth, from our God-given creation.
I can see that. I can feel that. Wow. Okay, so here's what I want to do, because we are like well into almost the second hour of the night. I want to bring this home, and I want to kind of leave people with a final thought for the night from you guys on this. So originally, the idea was for tonight was the core of what we feel like is, I guess, the ultimate cause, and our personal perspectives on why this area, why this vast area of land has so much high strangeness and has so much just crazy energy here. And I feel like at the end of the day, there's a lot of people within the many communities, uh, that are starting to say more and more, it's all connected. It's all connected. It's all connected. And I think the majority of people are starting to come together on what's connected or what the source is. I think traditionally in Western society, we're going to always come back to a spiritual or religious answer to everything. Uh, and and evidence bears record to the fact that it's possible. And I have my personal opinion. I'm not going to really get into it because I really don't want to discuss theology tonight, especially at this late hour. But I will say, I mean, because when we get into the next week, we'll talk prophecy, guys. Next week, we'll talk about all the things, because just go check out the upcoming video list, and you'll understand why. I'm not going to get into next week right now. That's next week.
I do just want to say, to kind of maybe clean up a little bit, I don't mean to draw any direct alignments or conclusions to theology or religion. What I am doing is looking at reality, what's right there, and looking at what correlates with the stories. And any offense taken by anybody who listens to that, I can understand. I understand the religious aspects. But I think it would be interesting to get into the theology when we have more preparation. And I'm not clocking out of work. So I appreciate y'all putting up with me doing everything else as well.
Not a problem.
Right. I get it. I mean, I'm literally working all the time, it feels like, honestly. So I understand. I'll need to check something too right quick. While I'm thinking about it. Yeah. Yeah, I need to grab something off the porch in a minute too. Yeah. So let's do this. I want you guys to kind of sum up what your ultimate thoughts are about the source of the high strangeness in this area. What you believe could be, from your perspective, from your observation, the answer to where we're at and why things are the way they are.
Well, we've disrespected the land. We've disrespected the people. We've disrespected that ancient culture. So naturally, all those things are going to change. People may not want to hear what I got to say. I think we would. I think the economy should fall, and I think we should go back to the 1800s and stuff and live off the land, and live as a family and live as a community, striving for one thing is to get along and survive. The quicker that happens, the better off we'll all be. Michael, you got any intakes on that?
I think what you're saying is tangible. And honestly, when you're talking about high strangeness, what are you talking about? You're talking about the information you get. And at the end of the day, like, it's all about the information you have. So if you have information of strange things going on, well, then there's probably some strange things going on. Why? Why is there strange things going on? How do you define strange things? I don't know. I had something come to me that I wrote down and put out the other day, and it's how I truly feel, and I would sum it up like this: in that, for one who is lost, there is the good word. For one who has heard the good word, there is study. For one who studies the good word, there is understanding. And for one who understands the good word, there is good work. And that is what I have found in my experience. And what I see in a lot of these high strangeness areas is people not doing good work. They're doing work because people don't stop working. You don't stop moving. You're just not doing good work. I think people need to hear the word. People need to hear the information, and people who have heard and who are doing the good work. There's sort of a responsibility on all of our shoulders, right? Because, I just thought it was so weird how so many people moved out of California and left. If all the people who left California and came to the South stayed in California and just fixed it, we'd be all right. But we kind of left a vacuum. There's not a lot of people doing good work. So that's a real high area of strangeness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. I feel that. Definitely feel that.
So I think it is just ripples. There is a lot of high strangeness. There's stuff going on in Oak Ridge. There's stuff going on all over the place. A lot of it comes from your management. Nashville is dirty because the management is dirty. You don't even know what these old decrepit, egregious things do in office that are not even voted in anymore. It's because people are asleep and they don't take the information to themselves. They allow it to happen. Pretty much, it's like Bruce said, we've done this to ourselves.
Definitely. I feel like we have, in a sense, under the influence, if that makes sense. Definitely. All right. I appreciate you guys coming on tonight and sharing your thoughts with us, giving us a little insight into maybe things that have been said tonight that will give us something to think about, something to focus on. Sorry, I was like reading one of the comments, and give us the opportunity to maybe really search the answer or answers to things related to what really is going on, what really is the answer to things, and to not try to embattle each other in the communities. I think that's one of the big dividers right now in getting questions answered, especially in the paranormal, cryptid, and UFO community realms. Is there's so much infighting, so much division, so much
Racism, competition. It doesn't have to be black versus white. It could be Bigfoot versus alien, and they're like, no.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and and there's a lot of ego. It's very ego driven at this point, and it's very monetary.
Right.
At
You get
this
into the
point.
clicks, and the clicks hurt us all the way across the board.
Right. We've lost track of trying to answer the real questions, and we've put our focus on ego and the god of money. And I think that's where we need to step back within the communities and regroup and try to find the answers. You know, everybody is saying the same thing. That is connected. It's all connected. We agree with that part.
Right.
But we don't have the absolute proof yet. We have a lot of theories. We have a lot of ideals. We have a lot of debate. We have a lot of questions in the background that are getting drowned out by various theological debates and so forth like that. But we are not really, at this point, seeking definitive answers. We're not really gathering the data. We're not really working together as communities. We're working as groups, small groups at that, trying to outdo the other. And I think at this point, within the communities, we need to kind of calm down, breathe, and start working together again. Because as the cheesy comment that they love to use in pep rallies at work, what do they say? Teamwork makes the dream work. I hate that, but it's true. It really is. I hate that slogan, but it is true. It really does. You know, when you involve the greater good of the whole together to seek the answers and not try to be the authority on everything, then we stand a better chance of coming together and understand things. This is why we have groups that understand that councils of people are much better than a dictator. But anyway, all right. Again, I appreciate you guys. I thank you guys for your time tonight. Come back
Yes, sir.
next week, guys. We've got some great things going on. Bruce, you are always amazing to pick your brain and find out some stuff. Michael, same thing. We've got some hardcore thinkers here, and I appreciate that.
We appreciate
sir.
the platform there, Daniel. We really do.
Absolutely. Most welcome. Most welcome. We will be back next week, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, may your journey always be magical.
I've waited for so long to see when you come back to me. Through the wars and battles that were lost, we're born again, it's you and me. The rest is history. Past lives. Past lives. Did we dance together on different floors in 1500 or 1504? We must have been lovers, we must have been something in our past lives.